All right, are we still waiting on someone, Sam? All right, seeing Sandy?
Let me just take a look. I was changing my screen to try and figure out if I could scroll down real quick. This is one. Okay. I think we're all set to get started, John.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It is 11:03, and we'll go ahead and get started for today's meeting. Last week, just as a really brief recap, we had some great presentations by the organizations that are seeking some of the ARPA funding. And today's meeting is to review the presentations, to look at some of the answers that have been supplied in the past week by the organizations, and then make a final determination with some recommendations to the county commissioners as to how to spend at least this portion of the ARPA funding at this point. So we'll go ahead and get started. Sandy, if you can pull up the information that you sent out yesterday, so we have that in front of us.
Yep. And would you mind, John, just kind of reminding folks of, there's a few extra people that are on the call that are not committee members, just about public comment and the rules around speaking. Thank you. So
we certainly appreciate people logging into the meeting and joining with us here at this public meeting. The intent is for the members of the advisory committee to review the funding requests. We will have a period of public comment at the very end of the meeting. But I would ask that if someone has a question, you can certainly go ahead and use the chat box, and we can hold those questions until the very end when we open up public comment. So I appreciate everyone's cooperation. We've got about a little less than an hour to go through this. We've got quite a bit of work, so hopefully we can get through this and take care of the job at hand. All right. Last week, I don't recall, we had a couple of questions about, or a couple concerns about some of the applicants. And I unfortunately, I don't have my page of notes that I had last week. Does someone remember which organizations we had not talked about funding as yet? I know Vesta was in there, but I think there were a couple of others as well.
Yep, I can take a look at that actually. So I think we wanted to look at Avesta Housing, TD, Vertical Harvest is what I should say. And then Quality Housing Coalition should review that one, and Greater Portland Land Trust review that project as well.
So let's go ahead and take a look at the Avesta Housing first, because they've got within their applications, they have 3 different entities.
Mm-hmm. So we have Meadowview, Village Commons, and then CV Street.
Okay.
We want to take a look at that one. And I get what you're saying, John. I need to scroll over, don't I? Okay, hang on 1 second. Ah.
We'll eventually figure out this virtual meeting stuff.
Never. I can expand it. Hang on. Use family outreach, quality housing. This is odd. I'm not seeing it as even a tab. I don't know what's going on.
In the one that you sent out, it was after Habitat.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting. Here we go. There's just multiples. There's too many. Just kidding.
Can you use the small
Yeah.
carrot on the left-hand side.
All right. Can you see it now, John?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's take a look at the Avesta housing. For the members of the committee, or any thoughts on the information that was provided during the presentation and then afterward with the supplied answers? Sandy?
So I do have some feedback. I was able to connect with Nathan yesterday afternoon, who did say to me it would be better for us to look at the net developer fees versus the gross. And when doing so, that does significantly reduce the percentage of the developer fee. And he also indicated that that does go back into the project, like like Westbrook Housing Authority had proposed.
Okay. Is Al on the call today? So I know Al had a couple of questions. I think and Rachel did as well.
Mhm.
Any further questions that either of you had, or?
Yeah, I simply wanted to notify the committee that I'm recusing myself from the discussion of the Commons. That's in Scarborough. I was on the planning board that reviewed that project, so I think I should recuse myself from that.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts from the committee?
Sandy, on the Avesta, if I recall, the developer fee on two of them were very similar, but then on a third, it was a portion, a percentage higher, and something maybe 30-40% higher.
Yeah.
While they mentioned that, or it sounded like they said, okay, it goes back into the project, it is listed on their pro forma, I think, as a loan.
Yes. And he did indicate, I'm just going to pull up that email, so I'm making sure I'm like verbatim to letting you know what it said. That they would opt to not have loans. Let me see here. Scarborough, Gray, respectively. Okay, so he indicated that at Gray and CV, 450 and the 1.3 million respectively will be loaned back into the development. And at
Okay.
Scarborough, they'll contribute other grant funds rather than loaning fees.
All right. So to me, and again, some of it may just be nomenclature. If they're doing a loan to the project, a loan is intended to be repaid.
Right.
If they are going to either forgive the loan or consider it as a grant, then I think we just need clarification as part of the application that it will not require repayment, which is what your screen says.
Yeah.
Just to me, it should be official so that it's abundantly clear in their application that is funds being invested in the project either as a forgiven loan or as a grant, so that it's clear that that is a portion of the public benefit. It sounds like that's what they're proposing, and that's great. It just, to me, it would be nice if they could provide that as part of their performer or an application, somehow memorialize it maybe in something a little bit more definitive than just an email, so that it, before any funds get conveyed, you have that paperwork. I don't need to see it. I don't know how the other committee members are, but as long as it's clear before the council the county writes a check,
Mhm.
I think that would meet the intent of what I was concerned with.
Do you want me to make that? I could make it a condition of the award. So prior to them actually getting awarded funds, so we could recommend an amount
Yep.
tonight, and then that would be what they have to provide prior to.
Yep, I think that would be a great solution.
Thank you. All right.
Any other comments or questions? Pedro?
Thank you. Good morning. With the responses to our DEIA questions, what can I say? It's underwhelming, to say the least. I mean, they talk about actively seeking out firms that adhere to good DEIA practices, but that's like, to me, it's what they're gonna do, right? And so what we asked for it was for their internal practices, and we didn't really hear anything about that. They also talked about recently having been awarded funds to update resident material to reflect broad languages. That's a HUD requirement. So why haven't they done that already? Particularly when we know that the populations that they serve, require these accommodations. So I continue to be concerned about so many of these companies coming in here, or not companies, but entities, and kind of just glossing over the DEIA aspect and its importance.
Al, I think you had a hand up.
Yep, and then I forget to undo my mic. I guess the only follow-up, and not to Pedro's question, but on the loan aspect, I am abstaining on the Westbrook housing applications because of our firm's involvement. But from a consistency standpoint, would the other members of the committee want a similar condition potentially with Westbrook housing, so that it, regardless of which of the entities, those developer fee loans are treated the same way? And then I'm just going to be quiet because I'm abstaining on that one.
Thank you, Al. Any other, I don't see any other hands up, but any other comments or questions from the committee? Al, did you raise your hand again? I just got a notice.
No, I was trying to put it down and I realized I didn't have to put it down.
Any other questions or comments? No? Rachel?
Yeah, I think I agree with Al as we go along. It would be important that there be a certain amount of consistency there in terms of the development fees and in terms of their presentation. So for either Westbrook or Investa, or that same question arises in some of the other housing that we've looked at, that it would be treated all the same for each applicant.
Yeah. Thank you, Rachel. I have to say that I appreciated Pedro's use of the word underwhelmed. In the presentation and the response from Avesta, considering that they were asking for a rather large chunk of money over three different entities or three different applications, I was hoping for a little bit more from the response. I guess that's all I'll say. Liz?
I too, felt similarly about the DEIA question. I also wonder, I felt that way about several applicants. And so I wonder if there are ways in which, if we're, I'm not sure I have exactly what I would ask for, but I wonder if there are ways in which, if we're holding people to account on, like, we'll give you this money if this, I do wonder if there's, I know it's not all consistent across the applicants of what is sort of high level DE&I practice, but I wonder if there's a way for us to be pushing on them with the use of the money to be doing more and to be doing best practice and not just sort of doing the minimum. Because this money specifically is for, making sure that those who have been most impacted by COVID, which happen to also be folks who are most often identify as people of color or LGBTQ or, or low income, like that's the work we want them to be doing and we expect them to be doing with this funding. And so, Sandy, I'm not sure exactly what that means for what we put in there, but, and maybe it's for sure in our next round of exactly what we mean by high quality DEIA practices. Because I was generally underwhelmed with many. And perhaps it was more just the time they had to present it, and that many of them are doing way more than they say they are, and some were amazing. And so how do we hold those up, as sort of, this is what we mean when we were talking about this.
Liz, thank you. I think that, and I haven't heard exactly from the county commissioners, but I'm thinking that we've pushed this back a couple of times as far as getting a recommendation to them. And while I'd like to have more information, inevitably there's going to be something that we want from the applicants again. But I think you're right. I think we can do a better job, I think, in the next the next version of this to spell out exactly what we want, but we didn't get a great deal of detail, and that's a little concerning. Pedro?
Thank you. Yeah, so I don't think the burden is on us. I think the burden is on these entities to come forward and show us what their DEIA game plan is. In this day and age, the fact that we're having to even ask these entities to show us their receipts is a little troubling, to say the least. And so whether it's, we want to see some people on your board that reflect the communities that you are proposing to serve, or it's we need you to partner with some consultants that can put together an action plan for you as an entity to uphold these values that, that you claim to uphold, whether it's that or all of it. I don't think that the burden is on us. I think the burden is on them to come in here and really be, provide us with some significant, some meaningful snapshot of what they're doing internally.
Okay. Thank you, Pedro. Rachel, I think I just saw your hand go up.
Yeah. I guess I'm not sure that at this point we can go back and ask them to do things that we didn't ask them to do to begin with. But I certainly, as I was looking at the DEIA information in the applications, I was also looking at the questions we were asking to see if I could get a handle on kind of what a base level of expectation would be. And I had difficulty finding that. So for our, excuse me, for our benefit, it would certainly help to have a series of questions or requirements. For instance, indicate how your board is representative of your community. It might be one. Is there somebody specifically on your staff with a responsibility for ensuring that the clients that you serve meet a certain criteria in terms of DEI inclusion? I don't know how we can set that up, but I do think it's something that we need. It's possible, perhaps that as we go through this and complete final recommendations, we could ask for follow-up comments or follow-up information on an ongoing basis from each of the applicants to send us information that includes some DEI questions that then suggests that they've really got to start to pay attention to it, because they can't just say, well, we've done this, we've got our money, and off we go. But instead that they do follow, as part of any evaluation system that we might want to have in place, that they do follow up. And that's an indication we're holding them responsible. If they haven't thought about it yet, it's stuff that they need to think about, and we're asking them for that information.
Okay, thank you. Al, I see your hand up.
Following up on Sandy's recommendation regarding a potential condition of approval regarding, the forgiven loan, could Sandy, I'm delegating it to her, but come up with a condition that would address Pedro's concern and Rachel's of both short-term and longer-term, providing that reporting, et cetera, so that it is kind of tied as an obligation of funding?
Yep. I totally agree with that. I think we could do two things come to mind. One, reporting requirements, so that there are reporting requirements built within ARPA and the program that folks will need to document and provide back up to me once their projects are rolling and invoices come in and that project's established. And that's all done after we sign contracts, and it's built into our contracts, which is the other component. So when we go out to actually award funds, we'll have an agreement put in place about the use of the funds, and then the reporting requirements that will be established and required of that agency. And we can certainly, what I'd like to do is kind of have a meeting as a committee specifically about what requirements you think would be appropriate. I'll give you the baseline of what they are, currently, and then from there, maybe work off of that and say, this would be a really good resource. The one thing I would be hesitant on right now with the applicants we currently are in process of awarding funds to is trying to create any stipulations that might unintentionally create barriers because they don't have the financial means to support any of our requirements. But I do think that we could look to what we currently have in play, and then for future funding rounds, will absolutely be the stipulations we attach to go along with the application itself, and then additional reporting requirements of those applicants. Because I do agree with Rachel in that we didn't present this initially to them. It wasn't really determined and classified well as in terms of the questions that were asked of that particular category. So I don't want to impose something that would be a little unreasonable at this moment in time. I think that we could then say to applicants and awardees, this is going to be the future requirements that you're going to have in terms of reporting and part of our contract. And then us as a committee build on that. And the knowledge that Pedro has and everyone else has with regards to this, those practices.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments before we wrap Avesta up? Okay. Now, given that there are these questions out there and there are concerns, do we still want to take a look at a recommendation for Avesta in each of these three properties? Any thoughts?
Sandy, I thought there were some in the initial straw poll, there was some funding that was, I'll call it earmarked. I know you had your spreadsheet.
Yeah, I thought we had come up with some tentative figures.
Specifically for those projects, Avesta, we did not allot any funds to it.
Okay.
So those are still open for potential funding.
Can you show us or tell us our total and where we are?
Yep. So it's up to you guys. I can show it on the screen or I can tell it to you.
I'm fine with telling.
Okay, so right now we have, of the 11 million, we have allocated to projects 5 million, just over 5.5 million. So we have plenty of funds to to utilize right now.
And the 3 applications from Avesta,
Yep,
Is there other ones that we didn't earmark yet? Besides the bus stuff?
yes, so vertical harvest, there are a few. Yep, there's Avesta, Vertical Harvest, Quality Housing Coalition, and Greater Portland Community Land Trust are the ones that have not been earmarked funds that are zeroed out right now.
Catherine, I see that you have a hand raised.
Hi. Yes, I do. I think regarding Al's question about the Avesta and the earmark, I believe we had allocated some money for the project in Gray last time. Does that ring any bells for anybody?
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
did talk about the gray one.
I think
Yeah,
that's what
I thought we had to.
Okay. I think it was like 300,000 or something.
Yep, and then 2 west or 3 left. Open-ended.
Oh, that's it.
So for those
all right.
two,
So
I'm sorry, go ahead, Al.
I'll move it along just for the sake of discussion. I would make a motion to approve or to recommend to the county commissioners $250,000 for the Avesta Meadowview 2 application. I'm just going to do a separate one for each one.
I second that.
Any discussion on the motion? No? Okay, all in favor from the committee about about $250,000 for the Meadowview 2 Avesta property? All in favor?
Probably
I
should do a roll call, John.
Yeah, that's right. I apologize. So going down the roll, Courtney,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Pedro,
Yes, but I'm wondering if we are going to be if we're going to be putting the condition of funding that we discussed a couple of minutes ago, or is that no longer on the table?
Nope, that's still there.
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification.
Rachel,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well, so it's unanimous.
All right.
Is there a motion on the Village Commons?
I
proposal?
would move to recommend to the county commissioners an award of $350,000 for the Avesta Village Commons project with the conditions of approval noted previously.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. And any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call. Courtney,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Pedro,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Rachel, this is the one you're abstaining on, correct?
Correct. I abstain.
Okay, thank you. And I'm a yes as well, so it's unanimous of those who are able to vote on this project. And for the Avesta CV Street, is there a motion for that property?
I don't see an amount for that one, Jonathan.
On the funding request I
Oh.
see here, it's also 350,000 was requested.
Yeah, I had to scroll up.
Okay.
Sorry. I would make a motion that we recommend to the county commissioners an award of $350,000 to the Avesta CV Street project with the conditions of approval previously discussed.
And is there
Second.
second? Okay. Any discussion on that motion? No. So the motion is $350,000 with the conditions that were previously noted for the CV Street location. Courtney,
Yes.
Catherine,
I apologize. I'm just gonna look at my notes real quick. You can skip me, come back.
okay, Al,
Yes.
Pedro,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Liz.
Yes.
I'm a yes as well, and that was a. We didn't give much time for Catherine, but Catherine, do you have a yay or nay?
That's a yes.
Okay, it's unanimous of those who are voting. Thank you.
Can I just ask a clarifying question, guys?
Yes.
Meadowview, number 2, they had requested 250,000. Do you still want to keep your recommendation at 200,000 as a motion?
Uh,
Or did you say 250? I thought,
I thought I said 250, but
okay.
I might not have said that.
I thought he
That
said
was the
250.
intent.
I thought he said 250 as well.
Okay,
Yeah, I heard
thought it was-
250.
perfect. I'll make it 250.
So Sandy, what does that leave us? That leaves us the vertical harvest.
It leaves us a few of them. So we have vertical harvest would be the next project. Or you could leave that however you want to or go in order. So vertical harvest, quality housing coalition, and then Greater Portland Community Land Trust are the other 3.
Does anyone have an objection if we take on the vertical harvest project next? No. All right. So they were asking, excuse me, they were asking for $8 million in their initial application. Any thoughts and comments upon their presentation and answers to their questions? Rachel?
Yeah, I guess I ended up more confused after their discussion. As I understand what they're asking for is for essentially for the affordable housing that's going to be built by, owned by, and managed by another corporation, Maine Community Housing of Maine. So I guess my question is, why wasn't Community Housing of Maine doing it? And then that would be the very final thing that was done after everything else had been completed. And it's not clear that the funding is there for everything else. So we would be taking a chance that if they don't achieve the funding for the rest of it, which I think is something in the tune of $80 million, there might not be any housing built. I guess that makes me, it troubles me. I think the rest of the project, while the project itself is a wonderful project, it's not ours. The only part of it really that's ours is the housing. And that comes in at the end. So I guess that's my comment there.
Thank you, Rachel. Any other comments? I have to say, when I initially reviewed the application, and then I'm sorry, go ahead, Al.
Jonathan, just as a reminder, I'm going to abstain on this application because our firm did the traffic study.
Yes. Yep. Thank you. As I was going to say, in reviewing the application initially, I had some significant questions about it. Their presentation did not help answer those questions, and I just wonder. It seemed as though they were adding floors to add different parts of the project that might benefit different groups. And I thought there were, I thought, and I still think there are better ways that we can spend, a great portion of this money. Not to mention the $8 million they were asking for was a lion's share of the money that we have to spend in this one tranche. So I don't think my recommendation or my thoughts on the recommendation have changed since I initially viewed this application, which would be to not fund this project and better spend that money elsewhere. But I will certainly listen to other comments, and then we can work on a recommendation. Rachel?
Yeah, I think that was my initial thought, and I didn't change my mind after their presentation. Again, it's an innovative project. It's a great project. It's not our project.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other comments before we entertain a motion? No? So I'm going to move that we do not fund this project out of the ARPA funding at this time.
Second.
Any comments on the motion at hand? No? All right. We'll go ahead and vote then. So the motion is to not fund this project. And Courtney?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Al? I'm sorry, you're going to abstain. I apologize. Pedro?
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Excuse me. So it's a unanimous of those who are voting for this on this project. Thank you. We'll move on to the Quality Housing Coalition. And just as a reminder, this program was looking for $150,870 was their funding request, and they did. Oh, geez, I just lost my spreadsheet. Hold on one moment. They were looking for, or they did supply some answers for our questions. Anyone have some comments upon this proposal? Courtney, did I see you put your hand up?
No.
Oh, okay. Pedro, you've got your hand up.
Thank you. I'm recusing myself from this vote due to personal relationship.
Okay. Liz, you've got your hand up?
Yes, I just want to let you know I'm recusing myself for the same reason. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else recusing themselves on this project? No? Okay. Oh, Liz, do I see your hand up again? No? Okay. Any other comments upon this project?
This was just for the rental insurance, right?
I'm sorry,
Yes.
Courtney. Oh,
Yes.
Okay. Looking at this project, I think their presentation was decent. I certainly had some questions about what the project was about. Looking at the initial application, I think they spelled some of those things out in the presentation, so that was greatly helpful. I think the question of insurance is one that obviously whenever someone has insurance, you don't need it until you need it. But keeping someone in their home, keeping someone, allowing them to have a place to call home, I think is a really beneficial situation here. Looking back, I think they were again looking for $150,000 plus dollars. Given that we have we've been very mindful of how we're spending that money. I think this is a project that we can fully fund at the $150,870 number, and be very confident that this is going to be money well spent. So if there are no other comments, Rachel?
Yeah, I just simply wanted to say I agree with you. What's happened as we've gone through this is that we're finding a whole series of different ways to approach the question of homelessness.
Yes.
from building affordable housing to keeping people in their apartments to dealing with landlords. And that at some point we just might want to put all of these approaches together, because it really presents us with a 360 degrees process of how we can work with the homeless, how we can approach homeless issues throughout the Portland metro area. So I certainly think this is worth the funding and worth with this project and others taking a look at all of the different approaches that are available to people to find and stay in their homes.
Very well said, Rachel. I couldn't have said it better. Any other comments or discussion before we have a motion? All right, seeing none, I will, excuse me, sorry about that. I will go ahead and move that we fully fund their request. It was $150,870 for the Quality Housing Coalition.
Second.
We've got a second. Any discussion on the motion? No? Okay. So we'll, Pedro and Liz, you're both abstaining from this question. So we'll, Courtney, what say you? Yes? Okay. Catherine?
No.
No. Al?
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So that is, what is that, 4-1, if my math is correct, in favor of the motion. So thank you. Then this brings us to our last one that we hadn't settled yet, the Greater Portland Land Trust. And that request was, they were looking at $500,000 in their initial application. And
So,
sorry, I'm trying to scroll up here. My computer's not cooperating. They had. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh no, go ahead, John.
No, they had a couple of answers to their questions that we posed, and I think it's a pretty lengthy response. I'll let you, if everyone hasn't had a chance to read it, they can go ahead and do that now. What are some comments upon this proposal? Al?
I kind of still have the primary concern I had originally was, is it barrier-free accessible, and does it meet the Fair Housing Act?
Mm-hmm.
As part of their response, they came back and said, well, instead of building 8 singles or 8 one-bedrooms on the first floor, we may change it. It just, while I think it might be suitable for the next round, I don't think it really meets the definition of shovel ready. And do they have, are they suitably far along on their design and permitting compared to the other projects? So those remain as my concerns.
Okay.
Thank you.
Liz, I think I saw your hand go up first, and then we'll go to Rachel.
Yeah, well, I think this is seemingly a great project. I was, the concerns that you all brought up about the Fair Housing Act seems like they have some work to do to meet that, to figure that out. And perhaps there's a way to say to them that if they, just to make it known that they have to be able to meet those requirements if they want to go into a pool for next time, or, we won't be able to even consider them in that round as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Rachel?
Yeah.
We'll go to Rachel, then we'll go to Sandy.
I would say with this group, come back. There are a lot of questions. It's a needed project ultimately, but it's not really ready. When we raise a question, it sounds as though they're adjusting their plans to meet our question. And that means they really haven't sat down and thought through some of the problems out there and some of the questions we've asked. I think they can do this in the long run.
Mhm.
But I would say at this point, wait and perhaps have somebody have some conversations with them about kind of like how to come to us with a shovel-ready proposal.
Very good. Sandy?
Thanks, John. So I just wanted to add a little bit of feedback. So with regards to the federal requirement, they are within that federal requirement. So it dictates that 5% of the units need to be considered ADA and 2% of those units have to be visually or hearing impaired, readily available. So technically only one unit has to meet that requirement. I did reach out to Al's contact, an architect for Alpha One, Jill, sorry, and had a conversation with her. And she had indicated to me that best practices, of course, would be to try to do as much as you can, to have as many units as you could. But the caveat to best practices is making those ADA units 2-bedroom units versus just one or even a studio, which isn't really in real world practice isn't very feasible. Oftentimes folks that need that ADA accessory dwelling unit would also need to have another bedroom for oxygen tanks, a living caregiver. So the size of the bedroom does matter. And I know that the folks at Greater Portland Land Trust, like you had mentioned, Rachel, when asked that question, they posed back that they would have units. They would try to make them larger on the first floor. I believe it was 2 and 3. I might be remembering that incorrectly, but I think they did say they try to have the first floor with 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units if they could. I think there was some barriers in terms of architectural barriers as to whether or not they could do the 3 on the first floor, I believe, based on their response that they provided. So I just wanted to give that little information back to the committee.
Great, thank you. Any other comments about this this project? No. Excuse me. Do we have with seeing no more comments, is there a motion that we'd like to make about this?
I'll throw one out, Jonathan.
Sure.
Again, a little bit may need some tweaking. I would move that the committee recommend that this project be deferred to a latter round, allowing the applicant to finalize their design and permitting so that it meets the intent of being a shovel-ready project in compliance with the necessary regulations.
That's a long motion, but I second it.
Thank you both, Al and Rachel. Any comment about the motion at hand? I don't have a comment, but I will. Hopefully, we won't have to have Al reread that question or the motion because it might take us through the end of our meeting. Not seeing any comments though, I'll go through the roll of everyone for this particular motion. So the motion is to defer this project to a later round of funding through ARPA. Or that was the best paraphrase I could make of it. Courtney.
Yes.
Catherine.
Yes.
Al.
Yes.
Pedro.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Liz.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So that's unanimous of the committee. I believe that is that the last one we had to vote on, Sandy?
For those projects that were zeroed out, yes. Okay. I would like to just mention, I know Rachel had made a comment at the last meeting about going back to Habitat, I believe it was, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Rachel, and adding maybe some more funds to that project. And the other one was the Portland Recovery Community Center. I just wanted to get clarification on those two.
And
Yeah, I believe at the time I had suggested another 500,000. I'm looking now at what Habitat was looking for, and it was 2,600,000. And the difference to me, I mean, I would now recommend full funding for that. We have the money. We know that it's an operation that's going to move forward. I wanted to, one of the comments that I made had to do with Standish and the understanding that really what's going on out in Standish is it becomes an integral part of a larger community rather than a group of houses sitting there kind of off to the side in terms of the social and cultural benefits to folks to being in an already formed community. I think is very positive. So I would actually make a motion. We go to 2,600,000 for Habitat.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to fully fund Habitat. Any comments about the motion at hand? Al?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Not seeing any.
Oh.
We'll go ahead.
Okay. Was there a second?
Yes, there was.
Okay.
Not seeing any comments. We'll go ahead and do a roll. So this is for 2.6 million for funding for the Habitat for Humanity project. Courtney,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Pedro,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So that is unanimous. Al?
As I don't think even with the additional amounts that we have earmarked that we've hit our total, I would wonder if there is support to increase Preble Street. I believe Preble Street's currently at 2 million, and they had originally requested 2.5 million. If we still have sufficient funds, and I'll kind of turn to Sandy on that, I would be in support of making a motion on that one.
We do have funds available to fully fund it if you want.
Okay. And thank you, Al. Rachel, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I support Al in that motion. I think this is another one of those projects that's going to have a very far-reaching effect and to really help a lot of people. So I would support going to full funding.
I have a question. Were they approved for their design? They're shovel ready?
For the Preble Street project?
Yes. Yep.
I was thinking they were already under construction.
That was my thought as well, Al. This was already in the process of going forward.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I think that, I believe they received all their approvals from the city for their next phase.
Yep.
Okay. So we have the motion. And Rachel, was that a second?
It was.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go. We'll do another roll call. So that it would be to add another $500,000 to the Preble Street project. Courtney,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Pedro,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Again, that's unanimous. I do want to be cognizant that we've got just a couple of more minutes left, and I did state at the very beginning that we'd have a public comment period. If there are no other adjustments by the committee, I would like to open up public comment for just a couple of minutes. If anyone wants to provide some sort of commentary.
Before we do that, can I just ask one question about support and recovery? If that was one that wants Portland Recovery Community Center. We had originally only funded 120 because we were concerned about whether or not we were funding the all 4 phases. Did you want to fully fund that project at 515,152 or keep it at 120?
Rachel?
Yeah, I had rated this highly. I think some of the questions that arose were around the questions of transportation, the location. While location is important, transportation is important. We're running out of land and opportunities in a lot of places. I think they found a facility that will serve a lot of people, and I had originally recommended it for full funding. So I actually, at the appropriate time, I'll make that motion.
I'd second the motion.
Okay, I've made that motion and it's been seconded.
Any comments upon the motion?
I think this was the one that we had questions regarding the phasing, and their application was a little bit unclear. And I think during their presentation, they did clarify it, both written and verbally. So I would support it as well.
Okay. Any other comments? No? All right, we'll do a roll. So this is to fully fund the Portland Recovery Center project. Courtney?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Pedro?
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Again, that's unanimous. Were there any other things that the committee wanted to talk about before we open it up for a couple of moments for public comment? No? Is there anyone who is not a committee member on this call today who has a comment? Tim, you've got the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Jonathan. No, I was just a question of on how the meeting goes, and I don't know. I participate at the state level and at the city level, but usually with public comment, wouldn't that come before you guys take a vote? Because otherwise you can't take it into consideration, or is that not how it works? I'm just ignorant about this because I've never participated at county level or on this type of thing, but. So from a procedural standpoint, and then the other question I had is just as you were going through and voting on the amounts, depending on the order of things, that could affect votes and outcomes because you only have so many funds. So as you go through, it might be best to discuss them and then take a vote of all of them together. At the end, because otherwise if just in what order you discuss them, there could be no more funds left in allocation. So I didn't know about that. I mean, just as a way of considering, I didn't understand that fully.
Tim, thank you very much for the question, and 2 very good questions. Let me take the second one first. The committee, and until we formalize a recommendation to the county commissioners, who will be the ones who actually vote yay or nay on these amounts, I think all of us took the approach that the numbers were a little bit in flux. We, as you've seen from this meeting here, we've added some funding to a couple of the projects that we weren't sure if we would have funding at the end, because we had so many applications that we were trying to give proper credit and funding to. So we've been able to move things around a little bit and rearrange those chairs in the Titanic, if you will, to make sure that we're funding things where we really feel that we should, and still being mindful that we've got a limited number of funds that are available. And that also plays into your first question. Typically, I think in most meetings you will have public comment before the real meat and potatoes of the meeting. However, we also are recognizing that we've got to get these recommendations to the county commissioners, I think in time for their March meeting, as it were. So we did want to try to get some of the business done, and then again, being mindful that we can make some changes to these funds if need be. So I hope that answers the questions. We did take it a little bit out of order, but I think it worked in this case.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions or comments from the public? No? Okay. To the committee members, thank you once again for doing a great job. And thank you to Sandy and the staff at Cumberland County. This has been a sort of an ongoing process, and one that everybody has really dove into and did their best, and brought up a lot of great questions. And there, like I said earlier, there were a lot of good presentations that were done last week by the applicants. So this has been I think a great experience. Everybody's worked really hard on this, and I think we've come up with some really interesting ways to spend the ARPA funds to benefit the greatest number of people that we possibly could in Cumberland County. And the benefits of our work will be shown over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years as people are settling into homes, being assisted by Preble Street and other organizations, and just doing or just having some resources that they might not otherwise have had. So thank you everyone for the hard work. Sandy, what do you have anything you'd like to add?
Nope, not
Okay.
at this time. Well, I guess I will say that these recommendations the first reading will be at the March 15th meeting, as John was talking about, where the commissioners will be able to view them and obviously make changes if they deem so. If they did make changes, those would get kicked back to us, and they'd let us know, or they can also just say, this is how we want it, and vote in that time period to do that. The second reading and final recommendation of approval will happen at the meeting thereafter. And I'm not sure if the commissioners will want to have a separate meeting or have this align with their normal April meeting. But as John had mentioned, given that the timeline has sort of changed, we had to push things out because we needed a little more time. I'm not sure exactly when that second final meeting will be, but I'll post it on the website. And of course, everyone will know as part of the committee.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other business or any other comment before we go ahead and wrap things up? Courtney.
I just wanted to say thank you, John. You did a fabulous job facilitating all the meetings.
Thank you very much. Pedro? Or Rachel?
I was just throwing up a thumbs up in support of what Courtney said.
Thank you very much. Rachel?
Yeah, I just wanted also to appreciate the work you did, John, in terms of herding cats, and thank the rest of the committee. This has been a positive experience, I think, and I feel comfortable with the decisions that we've made and the process we used. And I'm going to tune in on the March 15th commission meeting and see what happens.
Very good. Thank you. Any other comments? No? Well, it is 12:06. We're a few minutes over, so I do apologize, but is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There we go. A second. Great. All in favor? We can just do a show of hands. Looks unanimous. Great. Thank you very much. Oh, Rachel, did you have it?
No, I just was raising my hand.
Great. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.